Good morning and welcome to this new session of our series of presentations dedicated to the Hong Kong startup ecosystem. In our past sessions, we have presented most of the aspects of general interest for international startups that wish to develop their projects in Hong Kong, taking advantage of the Hong Kong's business-friendly environment and the many incentives that the Hong Kong government makes available to companies from all over the world operating in Hong Kong. We have covered all the aspects of doing business in Hong Kong. We have covered the general issues regarding the Hong Kong Science Technology Park. And our Italian friends are welcome to have a look at our past webinars if they're interested in finding out more information about Hong Kong and more information about the Science Park. Today's meeting will be very focused on the biotech team, the biotech of the Science Park. We have with us Joel Leung, who is a member of the BMT biotech team of the Science Park, who will tell us all about the facilities, all about the supporting instruments, all about the funds and whatever is available to promote and support international companies that are interested in developing projects in the biotech sector. So without any further ado, I will ask Joel Leung, Officer of the Biomedical Technology Cluster in charge of international collaborations, to tell us all about the Hong Kong Science Technology Park's Incu-Bio program. Joel, if you're ready, you have the floor now.
Thank you for your time today. I very appreciate you want to know a bit more about the Science Park, especially the Biomedical Technology Cluster. So I'll just give you a little bit of background. So I'm from the BMT team, the Biomedical Technology Cluster from the Hong Kong Science Technology Parks Corporation. I focus more on the international collaboration, but also on the infrastructures that we are currently building here in the Science Park that I'll go into a bit more later. So I'll just give you a very brief overview. I think even for Peter and Matt, there's probably something that you might not know too much about, but I just give you a brief introduction of the overall for the Science Park. So we are the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation, and we actually have three sites that we look after. And what we're going to focus more today is on the Science Park, which is where all the research and development of all our companies, essentially all our companies that reside in the park, work on either a research and development project or a startup of their own. The other two sites that mentioned here on the slides, the industrial estates as well as the Inno Center, these are kind of the places where it facilitates what we want to achieve in Hong Kong Science Park, which is essentially a one-stop service for companies to come in with an idea, develop it, eventually be able to market the brand, and then in the end, in the industrial estates, be able to manufacture and produce their product, and then access the market there, whether it's in locally, into the China market, but also overseas as well. So what do we do in Science Park? Essentially, we are what we call a super connector. We are a neutral body in terms of all parties or stakeholders that we deal with, whether it's in industry, the local government, as well as overseas as well, companies and governments. So we have good connections with all the universities in Hong Kong, which we have 8. The research institutes focusing on all different technologies in Hong Kong. But we also tap into actually the government and industrial associations. And that's very key for us because we're the only science park in Hong Kong, but because a lot of our companies are doing very innovative technology. So by having this connection with the government, we're able to actually help them drive a lot of these legislations, especially for biomedical. A lot of these actually regulatory as well as guidelines are actually quite thin in Hong Kong. And we actually have done a lot in the past few years to really drive that standard up to the EU, especially also in US, and really set a standard in Hong Kong that we hope that in China, the companies in China will be able to follow our standard in order to actually collaborate with a lot of companies overseas. Besides that, another important part that we do is actually the funding. 2 sources of funding. One is mainly from our for the private equity. So our investment team locally runs a huge network in terms of angel funds, but also for venture capital. So we're able to help companies like yourselves when they land in Hong Kong, as well as if they would just want to look for collaboration or look for new investment funds, we're able to achieve that as well. Our investment team also has a buy side and a sell side. So not only do we help companies source investments, we also are able to invest into companies as well, as long as they're early stage. And the last part of this slide is really the government schemes. The government has been very supportive to actually innovation in Hong Kong. And it's actually something that is a mandate that we're trying to push in Hong Kong to really put us into, not just to develop Hong Kong, but actually put us on the map for innovation and technology. Because we realized that a lot of these universities, as well as these overseas collaborations, are forging a lot of new novel innovation and technology that we can actually bring to the world, especially in the biomedical sector, to the patients as well. So in a nutshell, that in Science Park, the 5 kind of technology clusters, what we call clusters, are essentially the technology fields that we focus in. And these are the green technology, information communication technology, electronics, material and precision engineering. And the one that I'm in is the biomedical technology. So even though these technology clusters that we call are very distinct from one another, we actually all work towards 4 technology focus areas, whether it's artificial intelligence, smart cities, healthcare technologies, and fintech. Because we realize actually all these technology clusters, they all eventually are able to be interlinked. And it's very important that we don't work, when we develop these industries or develop these technology focus areas, we don't just focus on a particular field, but actually how we can integrate all of them together in order to create this so-called ecosystem for innovation and technology here in Hong Kong. So I just want to show, this is actually a snapshot of the Science Park. You might have seen it from our website or from other webinars. But actually the places I want to highlight are actually the buildings that we focus more on the biomedical technology. On the left, 5W is actually where our headquarters is at right now, where we're talking to you right now. But actually the other buildings highlighted in yellow, these are actually where our companies sit, but also where our infrastructures will sit. And you can see actually we cover quite a lot, a large sector of the park actually. So in Science Park, we do put a lot of resources and time into developing these biotech companies so that they can actually reach the next stage, whether it's from their very early stage incubation period, or whether they're looking for more collaboration or market penetration towards China, or actually obtaining certain regulatory bodies like the NMPA, which is now the name for the previous CFDA, FDA, but also EMA accreditation as well. So this is a snapshot of our biomedical technology cluster. So actually we have right now over 150 biotech companies in the park. The total amount of companies we have is around 850. We do take a portion of the total amount of companies in the park, but just give you a little bit of reference. 7 years ago, when we started, when we actually had a lot more biotech companies joining the park, we actually only had around 28 companies. In a short 6 to 7 years, we've grown over 150 biotech companies. And the main reason because is, and just to give you a short brief, is that actually a lot of these companies aren't just local companies. They're not just from they're not just Chinese companies, but actually we have over around 40 to 60%. So around 40% they're from overseas, and 60% of them are locally, including China as well. So actually our distribution for companies are quite even in terms of geographical location. But also what we focus in biomedical is also quite evenly spread as well. We can actually group them by 1/4 of our companies are in the diagnostics and in vitro diagnostics, 1/4 in the medical devices, 1/4 more into the pharmaceuticals and regenerative medicine, including stem cells, and 1/4 in what we focus more on the traditional Chinese medicine, but also reagent companies. So on the right side, it's kind of the companies that we highlight to show some of them you might know, some you not know, but one of the big ones that we usually focus on, KingMed, which is one of the top 4 diagnostic companies in China. We also have Abcam from the UK. They're basically based here, and this is their regional headquarters in order to source a lot of their reagents to not only to Hong Kong companies, universities, but actually across the Asia Pacific as well. Japan, Korea, they do a lot of that, the business there as well. So kind of the trends that we're looking for in BMT is actually what we realized that stem cells and actually big data is a huge trends that we can see across the world, not only just in academia, but also in industry. And what we're trying to do is focus more onto helping these types of companies grow, but also attract other companies as well, as we believe that for healthcare, it's quite crucial that every single sector, every single part of it should be covered. So kind of the services that we provide in Science Park, very different to other clusters because of the nature of for biomedical companies itself. It's very reliant on obviously equipment, very reliant on laboratories as well. So the service that the biotech cluster is able to provide so we have 2 main ones here you can see. On the left-hand side is actually what we call the Healthcare Device Innovation Hub. That's more catered to the medical device companies. So most, if not all our medical device companies currently in the park all reside in the what we call the HDIH, the Healthcare Device Innovation Hub. It's a co-working space. The companies are able to rent a small office there, and they'll be able to do their development in their own offices, but also provide an area for them to really socialize and actually work together, because we realize a lot of companies, especially in many science parks, is that there's not many gathering places, co-working areas. So everyone's very in their own bubble in terms of what they're doing. But because of the area and the space that we provide, they're able to, quite a few examples that we have is that companies are able to meet each other, and they're able to form a collaboration that way. The second part, support center. This is right now, what we have now is a floor where it's completely filled with around over 100 plus right now of life science equipment that can be rented by these companies in the park to use. And we have quite expensive equipment from mass spec to, we have genomic equipment, sequencing, sequencers, proteomics lab, microscopes. We have a full list that we can share later if that's of interest to you. But basically what we realized is that a lot of these companies, especially overseas, when they do relocate to another country, it's quite, it takes substantial funds, not only from investment, but also from purchasing equipment for actually to do your R&D. What we built this support center, the reason for it is because we realized these companies will need these equipment in order for them to do the R&D. So by having this rental system and a cost recovery model, basically because we're not a profit-driven organization, we're a non-profit, we're a statutory body of the government. We don't charge for profit. So everything actually we do rent out at an hourly basis. It's all based on for us to sustain and have the technicians to do the calibration and maintenance for the companies to use. We don't help you gather the data. So your team will be able to use these, but we're able to provide our technicians are able to tell you how to use the machine, or if there's any errors or needs maintenance, we're able to do that at a very short time because our team is actually based, half of our team is based in the labs as well. And one thing I think even in our pitches, we don't really mention is that actually because of the demand of the Biotech Support Center, we're actually expanding into having 2 more floors in 2 different buildings, so that the total amount of infrastructure probably is going to triple as well. This is very quick, kind of want to highlight is, even though we have these facilities, like the equipment to lend, as well as the space and the laboratories that we can rent to the companies, We in Science Park, especially the BNT cluster, realized that it wasn't enough to help the companies to bridge a lot of the gaps that was missing in Hong Kong, especially. A lot of companies maybe will require preclinical animal facilities to do the preclinical studies. Some may require storage, like a biobank, for them to put samples or have their services there to do their to the biobank services, but also an area for us to share data. And so we actually proposed to the government that these infrastructures are very crucial to develop actually the biotech region in Hong Kong, the biotech sector in Hong Kong, sorry. So actually the government's actually been extremely supportive and has given us Science Park a substantial amount of money to actually build these infrastructures that I'll show you now. So there's actually 4 main infrastructures that we're currently building. The biobank is where we want to basically allow companies in the park to basically store their bio samples, but also be able for them to do services as well as analysis in that facility as well. We're also building a biomedical informatics platform. This is where we realized that there's a huge gap, I think even across the world, between academia, the government, healthcare services, as well as the industry companies. And a lot of it, it's actually, a lot of them have their own separate data source. So what we're trying to do is be able to connect these data sources, so allow researchers, industry companies, startups like yourselves, be able to tap into these patient, not only just data, but also from academia, the research there, and then be able to use those information there to actually keep progressing in your research and development in your company. The first thing we're building is quite a substantial building, quite important in Hong Kong, is for preclinical testing, is a drug safety center or animal facility for us to do a toxicology assessments, PK/PD, as well as pharmacokinetics as well. So the reason why is because we have very good patient record in terms of our hospitals. We have very good clinical trial centers in Hong Kong, but companies are unable to move their research from the exploratory section into preclinical testing, and then into the clinical trials, because we don't actually have a preclinical testing in Hong Kong. So companies have to go overseas, go to China, go to Australia, or even over to Europe and US, just so that they can get the preclinical testing. And that was an issue for us. A lot of companies are stuck there. And what actually we're building currently right now is actually a ALAC accredited, but also GLP accredited drug safety center for these companies to actually file for IND, and then eventually get into the clinical trial center. And to really facilitate the clinical trial center that we have, we also have a powered batch production and device testing facility, mainly focusing on biologics and cell processing for these companies to actually produce the products they need at clinical grade in order to use for the clinical trials. Maybe this is touched upon. Besides what we call the tenancy, so these companies, just normal companies, small, medium-sized companies that come to our park, we also run an incubation program that we call Incu-Bio. And it's a 4-year program with all the support you can see on the screen. It's like a smaller scale one-stop service for companies to move and develop into the next stage. And usually we support these companies that's been established for 2 to 3 years. And we have 4 million Hong Kong dollars funding in total for 4 years, and additional 2 million Hong Kong dollars in order to support them to apply for regulatory. These are all done through you for reimbursement, and we actually have quite a lot of, so each company actually gets a custom manager that will know your technology, will have the background in, and be able to help you develop if you need any support there. And because of that, and the meetings, we're able to help these companies, these very early stage biotech companies, move on, find investment, be able to, you'll be surprised, some aren't even able to produce a normal business pitch to investors. And it's a huge problem. And this is kind of something that we provide in terms of professional services to help these companies bridge that gap and eventually develop their company, regardless of what the exit is, whether it's the buyout, IPO, etc. This part is more about the government subsidy, but I'll just very quickly summarize. The reason I put this slide in is because Hong Kong, even though we have 8 universities, we have 2 medical schools, there's probably the talent there right now is still developing. It's not as developed as countries overseas or in China as well. But then because of all these infrastructures, all these support from the government, all these development, actually we can see a lot more local talents as well as overseas talents in Hong Kong universities are actually taking up into the biomedical sector. And the government came out of this subsidy at a very good point when we were actually getting a lot of companies, because this scheme basically allows all companies in the biotech in the park be able to hire 4 headcounts essentially for free, whether it's bachelor, master, or even a PhD doctorate candidate, and they're basically able to stay with you for 36 months at a time, and the government basically pays for their salary, and this salary is actually competitive with the market. So you can see how this actually really helps companies, because each month if you hire all 4, you save around 100,000 Hong Kong dollars just on talent that you'll be spending anyways when you're starting up your company or when you have people coming over. So that's kind of the thing I want to highlight, is that talent is here in Hong Kong. We are able to have a lot of talent. That's why there's such a huge boom in terms of development in that sector, in the biomedical sector. So the last 2 slides, I just want to quickly summarize. Even though we have all the infrastructure, the talent, the companies, I think these 4 points are on the left are quite crucial. It's because medical data and information exchange is very important in terms of knowing the patient's pathology as well as the unique patient profile. And because our health authority in Hong Kong actually has these data tracked digitally since 17, 18 years ago, this is actually untapped potential that we're able, by building our infrastructure, able to tap into and share. There's a huge incentive for companies to tap into these specific patient profiles for their research. I mentioned before that we have 4 clinical trial centers in Hong Kong. Actually, all 4 are actually the data there you generate, it's in English, but because it's in English, that's why you can apply for FDA, NMPA, but also EMA regulations. So by doing 1 clinical trial set, you're able to apply for all 3. The third point I mentioned, right, the unique patient profiles and pathologies, but also the last part you might have heard of is that the Hong Kong Stock Exchange 2 years ago has launched the pre-revenue IPO for biotech companies to list. And it's very, very huge incentive. And initially when we first launched it, I think even across Hong Kong, we weren't too sure how many companies were able to actually participate in this. And actually the track record has been quite significant. I think this we can share later by Peter's team or Matt as well on the numbers. But I think in general is that the key point I want to highlight is that actually companies in the park have actually applied for this as well, even including sister companies. So you can see how everything meshes together, not just from the science park, but the government, the local ecosystem, but also the investments. The stock exchange in Hong Kong is very supportive of the very strong biotech development that we have in Hong Kong. And to finalize, my last slide is that the whole reason we have all this and all the things I mentioned previously is so that we can actually breach the gap. A lot of companies fall into what we call the valley of death. Very, very steep for biotech companies, that's for sure. The moment you start doing it, you're burning money. Until you get that regulation, you get that accreditation, you get your product out. It's very difficult. And it's not just a fund investment issue. It's not just a human capital issue, but it's basically the market access, the infrastructure is available to you. These are very key. And because by building the first layer of infrastructures in the science park, we're actually able to help these companies cross. So that's why we're pretty pleased with how far we've gone from 7 years ago for a very small amount of companies to how developed we are right now, and actually catching up and studying the top standards in the Asia region as well. So that's basically my presentation. Thank you very much for your time, and let us know if you have any questions as well. Thank you.
How many companies from Europe you have now in the park, in the science park?
So just to be exact, we have around 155 companies. Right now, I think around 60 will be from actually overseas, whether it's directly transferring their headquarters to Hong Kong Science Park, or their sister subsidiary is here in Hong Kong. Yeah. And I think just to give a bit more in general, we're not only from Japan, Korea, but I think that would be interesting for you, I think. But also we have quite a few from US, UK, as well as Europe, as well as Germany, France. So those companies we do have well, yeah. So it's not just in the Asia region as well, just to clarify.
Yeah, so I have a question regarding the funding scheme. So
yes.
if I understand, is it on reimbursement base, isn't it?
So which funding scheme are you focusing on? Is it the one for talents, or
no, the one the support provided during the 4-year program that you say it is?
Yes. So that's the incubation program. So the 4 years, we do it through reimbursement, R&D expenditure. So the reason why we do this is because we actually have what we call 6-month meetups. So we set milestones with the companies every 6 months, kind of so that we know what the companies are doing, and then how we can support them even further. And every 6 months, they basically show us their R&D expenditure, and we do a reimbursement that way.
Sorry, is it also just because we, as a company, we have a product that is ready to market? Theoretically, we need only to do in Hong Kong the analog of the US FDA. So we have the certification for Europe, but not for Hong Kong, of course. And so also I've seen that there is a coverage of this cost for regulation, and this reimbursement cover also market access cost, or only R&D for product development?
So the money, so in total, the 4 million, it's basically for R&D expenditure, so for the R&D development of your product. But then the way we categorize R&D is quite vague. We deliberately do that so that we don't restrict companies too much in terms of, because we understand that market penetration is also something that in order for the companies to succeed is substantial for the development. So we do allow that, but obviously the funding is more focused on, so the Incu-Bio funding, it's more focused on really companies that are actually developing their prototypes, going to the next stage in terms of that. Because after Incu-Bio, they basically go through a graduation that we actually had just yesterday. And these companies will move on to what we call tenants. So the support is exactly the same for tenants, but then without that monetary value of 4 million. But we're able to basically, the whole purpose of that money is to help these early stage companies develop. But even for regulatory, you might be able to tap into that because there's the additional 2 million on top of that 4 million that is focused just for regulatory, for your applying, but as well as for you to aid you to basically the process until you obtain it. So the 2 million is there for you regardless of that 4 million anyways. Yeah.
What are you looking for? So I mean, how do you choose the companies? What are you looking exactly? So the team, the expertise, the product, just to have an idea what you have in.
So yeah, that's a great question. what we really want to do here is really to look for novel, disruptive technologies. I think that's across the world is what kind of we're looking for. But because we're very unique in the sense that we're at the doorstep of the Chinese market, it actually creates the avenue for us to provide us to actually find really disruptive technologies, not just locally in Hong Kong, but actually to penetrate the Chinese market for companies overseas. And it's very interesting vice versa, because companies overseas in China will want to do the same across to the overseas market. So in regards to your question, disruptive technology is definitely one thing we're looking for. But what we do when we do vetting for these companies' application is also the R&D team. We know how crucial the R&D leader is in order to lead your startup. And that's kind of one thing we actually look into as well, the CV of your R&D leader and whether your team is able to achieve what you want. And it's not really a restriction there, but it basically allows us to help you. If you're lacking some expertise or personnel in certain areas, we're able to help you source that as well, whether it's locally or overseas as well. Thirdly, what we want to know is actually what you're trying to develop. So a lot of these companies, they might have a goal of maybe creating a certain type of cancer, maybe they're creating a medical device for a particular purpose, and that goes hand in hand, and it's quite important for us to know, because that's when we know the company has a drive or passion to develop their product and actually want to use this product in order to aid patients or basically able to contribute to the healthcare, at least for the biomedical cluster. That's kind of what we look for. So in summary, the personnel, how novel your technology, but also your goal in terms of what you want to achieve with your product. That's the kind of three things we want to, that actually attracts the companies over and what we want to develop here in the park.
Because that we still have some time, so maybe can you just introduce a little about your company or project, and because we have 3 of our colleagues here, and we can look from different angles that how we can help you or how we can address some of the questions that you might have, your concerns you might have when you consider to do something in a different location. You know, sometimes that it's a common problem, sometimes a specific problem. So, you know, that we are dealing with all these problems every day. So, so just let us have more information from your side.
So I can start if no one was brave enough, I can start. So I am the CEO of Complex Data. I am also professor. I'm a medical professor, medical doctor, but I also use artificial intelligence and big data and network medicine for at least 15 years. So our goal is to be disruptive. So in this, we decided to build this company because we have technologies that is disruptive, and that's why we build the company. That our technology is based on artificial intelligence, but is also quite innovative. We use artificial intelligence in an innovative way, and our goal was to predict in tumors, in people that have tumors, diagnosis tumors, what will be their future. They will become more aggressive or not. In particular, when you treat, you want to know, the doctors want to know what they have to do, if the treatment is working or not. That was the idea, and we built this platform, is Ariadne. So I'm now in Italy, I am in Germany, Munich. I don't think Italy is the right place to grow these ideas, because we are not at the moment so much technology in terms of artificial intelligence, at least for biomedical research. So we are looking at another place where we really can bridge the death valley that you talked before in the presentation, because now the strategy is ready. We are already validated, it's ready to go to the market. We are doing now the certification for EU, and we can extend, of course, in other countries. So we are ready to the market, but we are looking for someone, since we are I'm a researcher in the company. There are also business people that are more, focused on the business part. But anyway, we are looking for someone that can help us to scale up and to really use this technology. That's it, in sum up.
So when you choose the place, I just heard that you are kind of selecting a appropriate place that to continue your product research and product development. So what is your kind of criteria that when you selecting the place?
Oh, okay.
The right place.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question, because we are looking for a place that help us to scale up this technology and to really help us to become, competitive, in a sense, competitive with respect to the our competitors that are very old, they don't have this technology, but they are more powerful than us, of course, in terms of the market. So to bridge, for us to bridge this gap needs people that can, an environment that can help us in all the stuff that we are not good at. We are good in research, in artificial intelligence, we are very good in all this kind of stuff, but not in marketing, okay? That's not our job. So we need an environment that can help to scale.
Besides what we want companies to develop here, we actually constantly look for collaboration opportunities for companies as well. And I think when you mentioned this now, Katerina, is the ability to scale up. And that's something that a lot of our companies striving to do as well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The collaboration is very important to have an environment that can grow. So that's what I don't find I didn't find it in Italy in this sense. So you need an environment, important environment. Consider that, okay, now we have this platform, but we already changed this platform for COVID-19. We have a great platform that can predict the future of the pay, if you become aggressive or not. So, since we are doing artificial intelligence, we can manipulate very well the data and develop a lot of things. A good environment can help us to use also this technology in the right way. So, but we need an environment, otherwise it's research, it's another thing. Okay, thank you.
So actually, just to add to that, actually, because of this, basically finding applications, finding solutions. What we do in the Science Park is actually provide what we call the industry connect, to really. So a lot of these times, like you mentioned as well, companies with very strong team, very strong technology. You already have that product. But how do you actually market this product into the market? Or how do you find partners to actually use or implement your technology, especially if it's software or AI based? It's very important that you have that, whether it's from a massive corporation or for the devices, or whether to partner up with a smaller company to develop your product. That's very important. So actually, we do run what we call an industry connect. So these large corporations, especially not just in biotech field, but across the industry, including government, health authorities, they basically give us their pain points, what kind of solutions they need, and they're able to connect with the companies and work together to find that solution. Use their product with their problem, and then hopefully find a solution there together. So every single time a company works together, the point becomes quite unique, because it's developing of your own product into something that actually works for the market. That's one thing that sometimes most of the startups unable to achieve, is they get stuck there because the market isn't responsive to what they're building. So I think thank you for your sharing there. I think
thank you.
It's very important point to bring out.
I think that we have a good explanation of how we cultivate the ecosystem here in Science Park, and then we want to continue our discussions with each project, and we want to be of help of how would be possible that you can continue to develop your product, or continue to expand your business here in Hong Kong, in the Science Park. So yeah, maybe probably each company has their own scenario and their own problem. So we want to maybe we can continue our discussions on the Slack.com that we have created for like we can set up each private channel with each companies. If you want to share more information with us about your company or project.
Yes, Slack is a platform. You probably have heard of it. I don't know if you're using it, not very popular in Italy, but it's a platform that is very useful to exchange chats and group chats or private chats and so on. So this is one of the platforms that we will be using. When we organized this presentation today, we said very clearly to all our guest participants that this would be the common session to avoid repeating to everybody many times the same presentation about the biotech team and cluster of the Science Park. And this will be followed by individual meetings. So Slack is a good place, good platform, but if the companies, participating companies are interested, we might plan separate sessions, maybe 10 minutes enough. We don't need to do it 1 hour or two, just to discuss. I think you at Science Park, Matt and Joel, you have already the projects, presentations of each of these companies. So you already have the details. We don't need to spend too much time in explaining, but perhaps we can organize individual meetings to discuss the plans. I mean, you know, any of you may want to discuss privately what are your ideas, what are your doubts, and maybe you can give us suggestion and advice on how to convince you to get to Hong Kong. I mean, we would very much like to bring you all to Hong Kong.
This is Peter from Hong Kong. Hello. This
Yeah.
is Peter from Hong Kong. Hello.
I can see Peter there.
May I introduce a friend here? Yes, I would like to introduce Enrico. Is the last year champions of the elevator pitch in the biomedical's track. So welcome back, Enrico.
Thank you, thank you. And just looking always to.
You can share about your experience.
Yeah. So at the first, it wasn't every day. Was not the in the epic competition in 2019. I think it was the second or the third time that I did this competition. It's great opportunity for biotech startup to get exposed to the environment and to touch the environment of Hong Kong Science Park. So I suggest to all of my colleagues that I met also before this call conference to apply when it will be possible to the epic pitch competition. And yeah, so I like it so much that this is why also I'm trying to go to take additional and more information to be able to start as soon as possible in something in Hong Kong, not only for Hong Kong market, but as a gateway for the Chinese big market that also for biotech can be very interesting in the next few years, I guess. So
for sure.
Yes, thank you. A very good pitches for Hong Kong Science Park.
Yeah, it was. Thank you. It was great. Yeah.
If anyone have any other further questions, you can through Stefano or directly write us an email, and we'll explain with you one by one and elaborate what is our funding program and elaborate what's the support over here. And all of us, thank you very much, and we are waiting for you.
Good. So thank you again to everybody for participating. Thank you to the Science Park team for your support as ever. I will be in touch with all of you to try to arrange one-on-one meetings. Okay. Thank you again for participating.
Okay.
And bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye.
day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.